Okay, welcome to this video. This is continuation of part 2. It's later, of course. Well, if you've watched part 2, you know what's going on. If you haven't watched part 2, go back and watch part 2 in this playlist. But due to time constraints and stuff, I had to break up what would have been an all-encompassing part 2 into 2 different videos. So, without further ado, we're going to get into this video. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a yeast starter, which is something I normally don't do. This here is Fast Pitch Yeast Starter. It's the Northern Brewer house brand. I've seen a bunch of videos on it. I've talked to people about it. It's supposed to work pretty good. It's designed more for liquid yeast versus dry yeast, but we're going to give it a shot with our English ale yeast. It's a dry yeast, so what we're going to do is we're going to dump 2 cans into our Erlenmeyer flask. Then we're going to put the same amount of water into it. I'm going to introduce a stir bar and do it on the stir plate. Get it mixed together. Once it's mixed pretty good, we're going to introduce our yeast. We'll let the yeast get mixed in good. Turn off the stir plate, and then we're going to let it set. And during this time, while it's setting, I'm going to go get my wort, transfer it into my fermenter, and bring the fermenter in. Then we're going to pitch our yeast. The longer this sits in the yeast starter, the more yeast cells it's going to replicate, the more active the yeast is going to be when I introduce it in my wort. So it may be a while, just kind of a fade in on video time, but here we go. Our Erlenmeyer has been sanitized. I have a foam sponge which has also been sanitized. I use Star San simply because you don't have to be as OCD about getting it washed out as you do using bleach. Bleach is probably a better sanitizer. It probably cleans more thoroughly, and there's nothing wrong with using it. I'm just lazy, and that's why I use Star San. It's a mixture of Star San and One Step. And One Step is basically just food grade OxyClean. That's all it is. If you want to spend the extra money, go ahead. But bleach, watered down bleach, works just as good. And if that's what is in your budget, that's what you use. Like I said, I use the Star San and all the fancy stuff because I'm lazy. So let's take this off and put the stopper on our sterilized counter. Open the first one. Second can, and I will step off camera just for a second to fill these cans with water. We are back. Put our water in. would be remiss if I didn't point out that you don't have to use a stir plate. You can just use a spoon, or you can just simply stir it like this pretty well. I am a basically nerd. That's a good word for it, nerd. And I like my stir plates, and I like my scientifically gadgety stuff. It's just me. You don't have to use it. Use what works for you. What makes brewing easiest for you, that is what you want to use. I'm going to introduce my stir bar. I have it soaking in star sand, so it's sanitary, it's sanitized. When using an Earl flask and introducing your stir bar, always pick it up and slide it in. You don't want to drop it in. Finally get it centered. But you don't want to drop it in because there's always a real good chance of it breaking through the bottom of the Earl flask. We'll start off, get this going here at a low speed. Okay, speed it up. There we go. We're beginning to get a little bit of movement, get a little bit of a funnel. We'll go for this is about 5 is about the max speed on this, but now what we're going to do, this looks mixed pretty well, we're going to introduce our yeast. My scissors have been sanitized, and we're going to introduce our yeast. And the reason why you want to use a foam stopper is it'll allow airflow through it, but it will stop any dirt, dust, wild yeast, anything in the air that could contaminate your wort or your yeast starter. So we'll put this through. What I did with this is I took some star sand, put it in a bowl, stuck my foam in it, squeezed it like a sponge, let it run through real good. So we're going to put that in. Let this mix for a little bit. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to go out and get my stuff transferred into my fermenter and see what this is looking like. And here in a little bit we'll be pitching the yeast into our almost coffee beer. See you then. Hello and welcome to the conclusion of this video. When we were transferring from my boil pot to my fermenter, we had some issues cleaning out the mesh bags with the grains in it, and hence the big black spot on the shirt. But it's all good, it'll wash out. We are at the moment of truth. We're getting ready to pitch our yeast. What I'm going to do, and it looks like the yeast starter's working real good because I got a real nice frothy thing of yeast working at the top. So this looks like it's working the way it's designed to work. First thing we got to do is we got to take our magnet on a stick, which has been soaking in star sand. We're going to remove our stir bar. So we don't want our stir bar in our fermentation. Set this here, take the top off, and we'll pour go. I'm going to hit it with a little bit of water. Make sure we get all the yeasties out. And I'm going to Where's my hydrometer? There's my hydrometer. Nice and sanitized hydrometer. Put it in. Let it bounce around a little bit. We're showing estimated alcohol or approximate alcohol prediction. About 8 to 10% ish. So we should be good. Go ahead and seal this up. And we will know shortly what kind of beer that coffee substitute makes. So until next time, love, peace, better brewing.